All right, welcome back to Beach Chair Chats. It's a beautiful day here in May, and we already passed, May the 4th be with you and Cinco de Mayo, and hopefully we've survived to make it to today here on Wednesday. I'm here with the great guest, Jason Bahamundi. How are you, Jason?
I am great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Good. Did you celebrate Cinco de Mayo?
From Pittsburgh to LA.
Well, I cut out there for a little bit. So, did you celebrate Cinco de Mayo?
We were flying from Pittsburgh to LA, so not necessarily celebrating anything other than get me home.
Hey, well, I mean, just to get through the air, just to fly. I mean, that's a whole nother that's a whole nother conversation about just getting home. I think you have to celebrate that of being on the airlines and just getting through the airports and making it happen. So in fact, you're a big time triathlete, distance endurance runner. You probably could have got home faster on bike than it would have been on plane, maybe. I don't know.
It would have been close. It would have been close.
So did you get up this morning to work out? I mean, as an endurance athlete, did you still manage to get the stuff done?
No, I actually raced. We were in Pittsburgh because I raced the Pittsburgh Marathon on Sunday. So I'll be doing
Nice.
a lot of nothing over the next week or so as I allow my body to recover and reset.
You're reverse tapering now?
Yes,
All right.
exactly.
You're not one of those marathoners who like, I want to run a marathon every week. I mean, a weekend. Are you one of those guys or no?
Not even close. I've been doing this stuff for almost 20 years now, and I've had zero injuries in
Smart
20
runner.
years. And it's because I take the time to rest and recover and allow my body to get back in the best shape it can possibly be instead of constantly running out of gas.
I've been out of marathons since 2013, but I haven't forgot how to do it and just not to the same shape. And I always remember runners who would do that, right? I got a marathon, and then you see them. It's a lot of social media people. It's like, I'm doing another marathon next
Yep.
weekend. I'm like, why? And then you see them broken. I'm injured. I can't run. Sad me. Feel bad for me. And you're like, I don't feel bad for you because it's stupid. You got to rest. It's important. But how'd you do in the Pittsburgh Marathon?
I can't complain. So we did. I'm gonna be counter to what I just said. So we are on a run club tour and we're doing about one race a month over the course of six races over the course of 7 months. So some of them are tightly packed and some of them have
Yeah,
widespread. And so in Oakland, which was my first marathon back in 14 years, and
nice.
so I'll give you why, because I'm sure somebody's like, why did you stop for 14 years?
Yeah.
I ran the Las Vegas Marathon with the hopes of qualifying for Boston. And when I crossed the finish line, I was nowhere near my Boston qualifying time.
Hmm.
I was in tears and I said, I'm never doing this again. And I literally never ran another marathon unless it was at the end of an Ironman
Yeah.
or I went longer into the 100 mile and 250 mile distance. And so this year we went back. And so in Oakland at the end of March, I had a good race. I was thrilled, excited. And here in Pittsburgh this past weekend, I beat it by 10 minutes. So can't complain.
Well, sometimes that time off, I'm going to speak this hopefully to me that I've ever do it again. I feel like this is going to happen for me too as well. But the funny thing you mentioned Vegas because I had a buddy back in when I lived in Nebraska. We had a run club, and he qualified for Boston at the Vegas Marathon, and he'd been chasing this for so long. He's a little bit older than I am, and we were all super excited for him. And then, of course, while he was training for Boston, he had I think it was a hip adductor injury right on the hip that
Oh,
connected
no.
to, and he done, and he didn't get. I felt felt so bad. It's like that runner thing, right? You do this thing, and you're like, I'm going to train. You work hard, and then injuries happen. Now, have you stayed injury free? You said this whole
I
time.
have. Yeah, the only time I've come close to being sidelined was just something stupid. I had a hard run, and instead of allowing my body to recover, I went back out way sooner than I should have and had a hard run. And about 5 miles into the 6 mile run, I felt my calf pull, and I was like, I'm done.
Mm,
And I just walked.
yeah.
And I stayed off of it for about 5 days because we were racing Black Canyon 100K. I stayed off of it, KT tape it and roll it
Mhm.
and scrape it and everything else, and was able to get to the starting line with no issues. And so that's been the only time I've been close to actually being injured.
Yeah, I mean, injuries are a thing, and one thing about endurance athletes. is we're stubborn, right?
Yeah,
And you probably met some, you coach people too, correct? Have you?
correct.
And so you probably met some stubborn people who push through these things. How do you help people like stop? Right? You know how to do it as your own. You know how to say, I need to rest. I need to give this up for a minute because you're thinking long game. I got to do my race. It's not about this run right now. I need to get myself in check, right? How do you help people who, especially when they start doing this and they kind of get that bug and they have one successful race and they want to do another one? How do you get them to stop when they're starting to feel the pull?
Conversations. And when I say conversations, I don't mean text messages and I don't mean emails. I mean
Mm,
literal conversations like you and I are having right now, face to face, because I can see when an athlete is lying to me when we're talking like this, right?
yeah.
When they're like, I feel great, and meanwhile their face is contorted and it
Hmm.
just doesn't look right. And so I will ask them. I said, do me a favor. You hired me for a reason, and you know that I've been injury free for 20 years. You know how many 100 milers and finish lines and everything else. Why not trust me for a week? Give me a week.
Hmm.
That's it. Also, all I'm asking for is one out of 52. That's it. If you give me one out of 52 and
Yeah.
and it works, then we can go from there. If it doesn't work, then we can go from there too. And 100% out of the time it works. They feel better. They feel refreshed. They're like, "Oh my goodness, like I'm ready to go now." Because they we've been sold a bill of goods through social media, and it's not because look, if I was following Brian and only Brian,
Hmm.
then Brian would show his rest, his recovery, his training, and everything else, right? But the reality is, I'm following Brian and I'm following Lori and I'm following Suzanne and I'm following Joe. And so Brian races while Joe is resting, but I see Brian's race. And
Hmm.
then when Brian is resting, Joe is racing. And so we're constantly being fed this everybody's always doing something mindset. And the reality is, it's just because you're following so many people that it feels that way. And so I just asked them to let's press pause for 1 week. That's all I'm asking.
Hmm. And it's important. And just because, we get, like you said, we get caught up on this, like wanting to run or wanting to race this because now I'm resting. Like you said, you see someone else doing it. I got to go do that now. I don't do the true recovery post marathon. I've seen it happen. And people are out running long distance, doing intervals. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Even fun fact, I used to run the cardiologist, and he says it's not even your body that needs to rest; it's your heart. It's the one muscle that people don't think about when you do distance and endurance running, how much that takes a beating.
Yeah.
And if you don't let that part of your body, even your internal organs, not just the muscles, because as you know, you've done marathons and you've done endurance races, and I'm sure every time you finish, you just feel like well, absolute
Yes.
shit probably, and
Yeah.
we know it, right? And your body's like, what did I just do? Why did I just do this? I feel terrible, right?
Well, I record I call it the morning cup of Jason. Every
Mm-hmm.
morning I post it on Threads and Instagram, and it's 30 seconds to a minute. And today's was about the fact that I put on 5 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I've been eating to the high heavens and sitting on the couch. It's that my body is swollen because my organs
Mm-hmm.
have put water around them to protect them because they just went through trauma for 4+ hours.
Yep.
Not to mention another 6 hours in a plane, right? It's building up that water to protect
Mm-hmm.
themselves. So that there is absolutely that. And I will also add this in, Brian. The reality is the one muscle that is probably the hardest to train is the one that lies in the 6 inches between our ears. And so
Mm-hmm.
we have to train that muscle to be like, rest is training, right? Sitting on the couch is training. Like recovery is training. It doesn't have to be always hard, 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 hard. And I've said this on other podcasts, so this isn't like a hot take from me. Like the idea of people subscribing to the David Goggins book of Stay Hard drives
Yes,
me absolutely freaking nuts.
I know.
It drives me nuts because that's how people get hurt. That's how people burn out. And you know what? Well, I have a text thread with a bunch of my guys. We often type in there, "Stay soft today, fellas." Like
Hmm.
this, like let's do the opposite of that.
Yeah, well, because it's true, right? I know David Goggins is like, oh, he's just gonna swear at you and run and go intense, go hard, right? And you just have to rest. It's just part of the process of being an endurance athlete or any athlete. It doesn't have to be a runner or cyclist or
Mhm.
swimmer, any sport.
Yep.
eventually your body's gonna break. You haven't gotten to the point of evolution where you can buy a new body on Amazon, right? As you get older, if you do, that'd be creepy. Um, but as we get older, right,
Yeah.
it takes a lot more to recover as we age. I fall into this trap of like I want to chase my times of the old days. I'm just not there. I find days where I'm out running and I get passed by a guy or even a woman, doesn't matter. And they give me you're doing a good job. I'm like, damn it, I used to be that person and now I'm given the attaboy. And and so one thing about the sport is patience, right?
Yeah.
And not pushing yourself because stuff like that can cause you to just like, "Oh, I gotta step it up now. I gotta do this." Have you ever find those moments, in your career of doing this where you feel like I got to do more or you feel like you're losing a step?
So I'm 52.
Okay.
I started this when I was 33, 34. And so the question you're asking is very appropriate in the time that we're having this conversation, because right now would be the moment where I could say, I need to do more so I could get down to that. I ran a 331 or something like that in
Nice.
Vegas 14 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do more to get that. And the reality is, I'm 52
Mm-hmm.
and I need to be patient with my body and understand that the PRs that I'm setting today are for a 50-year-old male, not the 35-year-old male that ran the 331 ages ago, right? And so perspective comes into play too. And as a matter of fact, yesterday in the cab ride from the airport back to our apartment, I did research on what's the average time for a male 50 to 54 at Pittsburgh. And it turned out that I was 8 minutes faster than the average time. And so that for me is a win, right? Like, forget about the actual time that it took. I beat the average male 50 to 54,
Mm-hmm.
and that made me feel good. And so that's the feather in the cap that I'm wearing today, not the I'm an hour behind what my old PR used to be,
Yes.
because they're just not one and the same.
Well, it's the age group. I call it age group now, right?
Yeah.
And you start when I say when you get to a new age group, wipe the deck clean, right? And we start over with the age group and we set the standard for that age group. What's your PR going to be for that grouping that you're in
Here's one thing
versus
I do. I don't mean to interrupt you, but here's one thing that I do along those exact same lines. Every January 1st, I reset my watch so that when I start running January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, everything is a new PR for the year so that I'm comparing myself to the
Mhm.
year that I'm in as opposed to some number that was, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
which is smart because I think when people do that and don't keep comparing, they start to feel defeated, right?
Yes.
They start to like, I want to give up the sport, and not keep investing into your health and just the challenge of doing it and just give up, right? And so if you had to speak to someone who's wants to get into an endurance sport, whether it be a triathlon or a marathon or cycling or whatever it would be, how do you help them get into it and stay with it?
I use this often. I go right to the movie Cars, where Lightning
With the
McQueen is
Oh
trying to
yeah.
get around the dirt track, and Doc tells him slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Hmm.
And I have that conversation with beginners. I have to have that conversation with veterans too,
Yeah.
who want to just keep pressing the gas pedal. I'm like, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. You build into this stuff. You don't, and then I use an analogy, right? If you register for a race today, you're not automatically starting at the finish line. You have to take all those steps in between to get to the finish line. And every one of those steps is small, but you keep adding them up. And by the time you finish the race, you've accumulated X number of steps. And I happened to look at it yesterday, so it's not like I can memorize this, but I took 52,000 steps to finish the Pittsburgh Marathon.
Hmm.
But if I only focused on the 52,000 steps, that would seem enormous.
Hmm.
But if you go one step, one step, one step, one, before you know it, you've got 52,000 steps and you're at your finish line. So
Yeah.
it is that patience and perspective mindset.
It reminds me of a time I was doing a track workout, and track workouts are dangerously, tricky because it requires patience. And
Yeah.
a lot of times I remember like the same guy I told you about who qualified for Boston and Vegas. He was always the guy who'd be like, we have to do the workout this, our intervals have to be this pace, but it always would be the alpha guys, right? And you get the guy who just takes off on that sprint. You're like, now we all have to do this because our egos take over. And sure enough, we get gassed. our workouts gone to crap. We may have proved something that we're faster than the other guy, and here comes slow and steady,
Hmm.
finishes the workout, and he always would say, how'd you guys do with that?" I'm like, right, every time, right? And so patience is there, and it is a humbling sport. Um,
The tortoise was right.
the tortoise is always right, and he was fast. He wasn't like he was a slow guy, but he knew how to do it, right? He stuck to the training, stuck to the plan, stuck to the rest days, and never added more to it. And I think that's some of the times we want to add more,
Yes.
and you have a 3 mile workout, 3 mile run, 4 mile run. It's like I can do five. I've got time for more. I could do six. I used to get into this habit. I'd run and it's like, oh, let's go all the way to that stop sign. And stupidly, like I have to go back. Now I just
Right.
know the workout was 5 miles. Now it's 7 or 10, because you feel good in
Yep.
those first five, and then you realize they have to go backwards and let's just get an Uber and get a ride home. I actually I did that once. It's a sad story. I was running in my old neighborhood. I just was not feeling it,
Yep.
and I saw a police officer sitting in a parking lot, just doing police stuff. And I said, "Okay, I'm gonna do this." And I walked over to the cop. It's like, "Hey, can I get a ride home?" He's like, "Seriously?" "Yeah, I'm not feeling this run. I got to get home and do cleaning. I got stuff I got to do." He's like, "All right, where do you live?" And you go, "Can I see your ID?" "Sure." He goes, "There's no, you have to sit in the back." I'm like, "Do I have to sit in the back?" If you've ever been in I've never been in a cop car before, so like it's not comfortable by any means.
No.
And I drove home. It wasn't far. It was probably another mile or two, but I just was not feeling it. And I just said, "Can you drop me off at least 2 blocks from the house?" So he did. It was an interesting experience. Was not everybody gets a ride from the cop when you
No.
bonk on a run. So, but those days do happen, right?
They do. They absolutely do. I had a friend when I was racing more Ironman distance events who had a horrendous bike ride. And he was like, all right, you guys get started. I'm going to take my time transitioning to the run. Well, when a handful of us came back from the run part of the brick workout, and we didn't see him on the run, we get back and there's a note on the car. His bike is in the back of the of his car with a note that says, "I took an Uber home. One of you guys could just drive my car and my bike back."
See, it happens to all of us. We have those runs where you just say, I can't
Yep.
do it." Like this morning, I will admit it. It was a Cinco de Mayo post run, and you could guess, whatever. I still did it, but man, I felt like I was running on a hamster wheel. Like is my legs moving? Is my body moving? This is horrendous, but I still did it and finished it. It wasn't pretty, but some of those days you just like that's why it's important to take care of your body, right? Stuff like
Yeah.
that. You want to live life and have a good time, but yeah, it does affect the workouts too. Now, let me ask you this. You created this Run Try Bike, right? The community. Talk a little bit about that
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
created.
Yeah, it was about 6 years ago. It was the end of 2020. So this business is a COVID baby.
Hmm.
Um, I have been in sales and marketing in the media space, so television, magazines, newspapers, that kind of stuff. Selling and buying and planning media, marketing and advertising in those platforms. And I was working for a company called Travel Host at the time. And look, COVID companies got the word travel in it, not good.
Hmm.
And my mentor, and I'm so thankful for him, was like, you keep talking about this business. You might want to start thinking about it now because, as you can tell, we're not doing well financially in this space. And he allowed me to start my company inside of his offices. And so I started my business, and at the time we were a print magazine, as well as all of the digital and social stuff. But the whole idea was to prove that there was a spot at the starting line for everybody and everybody. And the reason being was and they've gotten a little bit better, but the major publications in our industry are always focused on the elite podium athletes and never the middle back of the packers, age group winners, right? And I was in a training group. I started a trail running group, and I was like, where are all those people that I train with
Hmm.
and I race with, and we go to these places together? Like, why aren't we seeing them?
Yeah.
And so I launched this business with that idea to show them that you belong here too, right? Like you have as much a right to be at that starting line as anybody else.
Hmm.
And I want to tell your story so that we can then inspire and motivate others. I'm Puerto Rican. I grew up in the Bronx of New York, and it's not as if there were milers, 5Kers, marathoners on the corner, right? There was no
Hmm.
cyclists that I knew of or swimmers that I knew of growing up. And being Puerto Rican, the predominant sport is baseball. So I even had family, Brian, say to me, we don't do those things. And I was like, what do you mean we? Like,
Hmm.
who is this we? I'm
Yeah.
doing it. I'm starting a business for it. And that was also another little pin in the business plan that if there was another Jason who was 13 years old living in the Bronx, maybe if they saw me, they would say to themselves, I can do it too, because I knew what endurance sports had given to me. And so we've built this community over 6 years, and I would put it up against any other community in the running space as far as the support that we have. And
Hmm.
we've got people that are qualifying for Boston, all the way up to people that are taking 8 hours to finish the marathon. And there is never a moment in there where we're belittling each other, because that's just not the point of it.
And that's one thing about the endurance sport community. I mean, they've always found at least runners to be always good. I never met anybody who's not. I'm sure there are, but they've always been supportive. Even in a race, there's always people helping support each other. And I love this idea because you're right. They're everybody. You run 26.2 miles. If you do it like the guy who just did it in 1 hour and 59 minutes, which is ridiculous, um,
Ridiculous.
or 8 hours, you still cover the same distance, and it's an
Yep.
achievement, and it should never be diminished one bit. I think Ryan Hall even said it once. He goes, "I give props to those who run in 4 hours. It's a long time, but you still did it. A race is a race, a marathon is a marathon. It's no
Yeah,
different for anybody. So to actually set up and train for something like that, and everyone's reason to do it is their reason, whether
that's
they're
right.
professional athletes or they're just like, I want to make a change in my life or whatever the reason would be, they still do it. And when they achieve it, that is theirs. And no one can take it from them. Right.
Yeah, and no one why has greater moral value than anybody else's why, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like some people are coming back from drug and alcohol abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have had family issues happen. Other like we have a podcast ourselves where people come on and they are telling us why they got into sports. And one one athlete recently told us that his sister had died and she was unhomed and was dealing with schizophrenia and all these mental health issues. And that was his why for getting out
Mm-hmm.
there, was to run on behalf of those who are unhomed and showing
Mm-hmm.
that they are real people too. And so you have all of these reasons why people are running. And
Yeah.
again, no one reason is greater than another one's reason in terms of moral values. Like it just doesn't exist. So celebrate them all. Let's slap each other on the back, high five each other, and just have a lot of fun doing these things.
Because it is also a very individual sport, right? You have
Yeah.
people to support you and stuff, but it's you, right?
Yeah.
You against everything. And that why is what drives people, right? Since I've gotten back into running, I just said, you know what, I'm going to run without music, you know, and I
Yeah.
used to run with people. So I run by myself. So the psychological warfare that I put myself to do a distance run with no music, no one talking to me, just myself, right? Pushing it. I think that's the one thing about endurance sports is that you can push yourself to a limit that you probably never thought you could do, right?
Hmm.
Or someone's like, I ran my fastest mile. Awesome. Now what's the next one going to be? Right. And they see that like sense of achievement, even from a beginner to a veteran of 20 years. There's always that opportunity to like, my body can do this and I'm able to move, I'm able to run, and I'm able to do something I didn't do yesterday. And that's what makes this pretty cool. It's even like this podcast too, right? People always ask me, who do you interview? Like, who are they? It's like, these are just everyday people, right?
Yeah.
And people I'd never met, strangers who have unique stories. I don't have to get like the biggest person in the world or some celebrity here. It'd be cool. I would probably like freak out and panic if I had like President Obama or somebody on here. Like, what do I say? Come back. Um, so, but there is that, right? I was just everyday people, and when people ask, like, well, what do I talk about? It's like whatever you want. It's
Yeah.
your story. Um, and so I think it's pretty cool that you have this community set up for others, right? What's been one of the coolest stories that you've witnessed or heard from a person?
It just happened. One of the coolest ones, and this is probably recency bias, is one of our members, Hal, ran his first marathon at the Flying Pig in Cincinnati this past weekend,
Nice.
and he set up there's a app called Rally, and you
Hmm.
can record a 1 minute, I think, voice memo, and it plays when the athlete crosses that particular marker on the course. And he told me that there were four people from the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse that we have that left him voice memos, plus four other people that he met through us on threads who aren't members of the clubhouse yet. And so if you think about it, like 35% of his voice memos came from our community that
Hmm.
helped get him to his finish line. And he said every time I heard somebody's voice, I could visualize them in our clubhouse and in the conversations. And it just really helped me to keep going, even when, the next step I knew was going to be a little bit more painful than the last. And so it's that kind of story that has perked my excitement over this clubhouse. And then we have people sharing stories about outside of running. A member, Kathleen, shared that her nonprofit, she's on Broadway in New York City, was nominated for 7 awards that would be equivalent to like the Golden Globes for Broadway.
Nice.
That's right. And like, that's pretty cool,
Hmm.
and it had nothing to do with finish times or miles per minute running or whatever it is. Like, it was cool.
Yeah, it was because again, runners are it's not like a unless you're sponsored and like a pro athlete here, it really it's just like it's the hobby you do and it's everyday people. It's like the Olympics, right? When you watch the Olympics, like, oh, they're doing some great sports and like what are they in their career? I don't know. They work at Home Depot. It could be the case, but it's everyday people doing these phenomenal things. But even outside of that, when you have conversations, even with your running or meeting people, running with them, and say, "Damn, that's impressive." Right.
Yeah,
And that's almost even more impressive than the race itself, but they may think differently, right?
right.
Because that's what they do for a career. To them, this is like their life's work, and doing a marathon or whatever that would be is huge for them. But if you've done a marathon, you say you just won 7 awards for Broadway. That's a whole different talent, right? So human beings are fascinating, right? And,
Fascinating.
and which is why I love this doing this podcast. It took me 2 years to finally pull the trigger on this, and have enjoyed it so far to this point. I think you might be episode 25 since I've started
A good
doing
number.
this, and we'll see where it goes from here. But let me ask you this question, and we're getting close to time here. If you had to pick and choose of the try, run, bike, or swim, what would be your go-to? If you had to pick one and dump the other two, which one would you keep?
I say this, and I apologize to all my runner friends, but I am a cyclist by heart, but runner by talent. So
Mm,
I would still get rid of the runner part and put me on 2 wheels and let me
just
just frolic
fly.
around the streets and enjoy my time out there on 2 wheels.
I agree. It's actually this it doesn't hurt the body as much either, too. I've learned this as I've gotten older. I'm not too far behind you in this, and as we get older, things start to hurt more. So biking, my bike is currently decommissioned. It needs a completely drivetrain, completely done. But I do miss it because where I live on the shoreline, you can just go for miles and have these beautiful views. So, but yeah, running's also wonderful, but I can't swim, so I'm already throwing that out. So,
I will tell you, swimming is I used to I wouldn't say hate it, I disliked it in comparison to the other two. But one of the things I have found is recovery from these hard efforts. Getting
mhm,
in the water for 20 to 30 minutes is like utopia because
mhm.
easier on the body, right? For sure, because you're not having the pounding. And if you're tired, you just stand at the wall and catch your breath.
I
Like,
know. That's what I would do. It's like you get to swim, I can't. Probably could, but yeah, I have a fear of drowning. But I probably couldn't drown in a pool, but still, it's a
right.
thing. One thing I do, I was out for a run, and this guy every morning where I live, I see him by this bridge, and like, is he gonna jump in? And every time I come back, here he comes wearing Crocs. He stripped down and jumped into the water for like a cold plunge to wake up, and I've done that too. sometimes after a long run, especially it's, May right now, the ocean's a bit chilly,
Yeah.
but not horribly hot, not freezing. I've gone and it was freezing, but it's been wonderful for the joints, for the inflammation and stuff like that. So it's fun getting older, right? But we're still doing it. But Jason, it's been a pleasure having you on today, and I encourage you to keep doing amazing things and helping support athletes in this community. I mean, I love it. It's awesome to see celebrating just everyday random people out there. So, Jason, it's been wonderful having you on today, and congratulations on completing that marathon.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on your show. With all the people I'm sure that have sent you pitches to be chosen to have this conversation means a lot to me. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for, responding to it. I didn't know who was going to respond to when I put it out there, but I've enjoyed every conversation I've had to this point.
Good.